I'm live. I was just trying to go live for the last, 5 minutes, doing weird things, checking my hair, checking my necklace, and it just kept spinning. So I clicked refresh. So I don't know what got captured and what didn't, which is fine. Entertainment, right? There is a mess around me. We're moving. Next week at this time, we'll be in a new house, and I'm sitting in the middle of my office is either empty or just stuff off the walls on the floor. So good times. All right. Last week I had started chapter 4. I thought that I would finish chapter 4, but with my pontification, it didn't go that way. So I'm going to finish chapter 4. I want to start off. I was just listening to a podcast. I love listening to the Follow Him podcast by John, by the way, and Hank Smith. There are a few others that I listen to sometimes too. This one just is currently at least my favorite. And they have a guest every week. And this past week, January 29th, 2925 through what is today, February 9th? I think that's when it was uploaded. February 3rd through February 9th. There we go. She was talking about translation, and it was the coolest thought. And it's fun to me when people put things into words that I've thought about, but without words. Do you guys ever think without words, like kind of just think emotionally or think like ideas and pictures, but there aren't really words to go with it? It's just like a sense of there's something to this type of thing. Anyway, she was talking about translation and how we look at translation. So Joseph Smith translated the Book of Mormon. So we tend to, as general human beings, think of translation of this word means this word means this, and we try to do this direct translation. And if you've ever learned a language before, and I speak a couple of different languages besides English, not perfectly, but pretty well. Anyway, as you are learning languages, you realize doing direct translation, number one, is often inaccurate. Number two, it's really hard to communicate when you're trying to translate everything if you're doing it like that, because things get lost in translation, and it makes it really hard to just be in the flow. So she was talking about how translation isn't just that. Translation is also seeing it through our own perception of things and, adding culture into it, but also personal life experience. So all of us are technically reading, as we read scripture and other works, really, we're doing our own version of translating it. Like I might read or even watch a movie and get a completely different experience out of it because of my own personal experiences, what I'm looking for at the time, what my own life experience is. And with the Book of Mormon specifically, every time I read it, I have a new understanding, or it hits me in a different way because of what I'm currently going through and what I previously learned and what I'm looking for. And then also, I believe largely it's because of what the Spirit has to speak to me at the time. So translation is more than just word for word, da, 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 da. And part of translation for us personally, I don't think that means it's just like this, whatever it means to me is, because we can totally get off into the weeds and go down roads that are not even the intention. And I would give some examples, and I know I have probably lots of them, but right now I can't think of any, so it's fine. But it's translation based on what's there. So one of the ways I like to personally translate scriptures and other things that I'm reading is I look up words. And sometimes I look up words, most often actually, I look up words that I already know what the meaning is. But then I start wondering, why did they use that word there? There's lots of words they could have used. Why is it that word? Or I wonder what that word really means and what does it mean in this context? And so almost every time I look up a word in the dictionary, I'm just like, oh, like, yeah, I got that meaning, but that meaning I was missing. Or, wow, it just expands it. And another way that I like to translate, and this is based on the only 2 languages out of how many that exist in the world that I've studied, anyway, that I'm more fluent-ish in, is like if I were, excuse me, if I were reading that in this language, what would that mean? Or what language was it originally written in? I wonder what it would mean in that language. And then I don't know how to find that other than listening to experts and taking what they have to say. So, anyway, just a way to think about your own personal experience as you're reading scriptures. Specifically the Book of Mormon in this case, but any scripture, but then even poetry or scientific articles or books in general. Like, we do our own version of translating every time we read something, is the point. So, as we go through the rest of this chapter, excuse me, I've got, I think, dust from packing. This is a fairly difficult chapter, a quite difficult chapter. I mean, it really talks about some heavy things and some, I don't know, it raises up questions in my mind every time I read it. And I've read it lots of times. And so there's a lot to it. And so I think this conversation about translation is really pertinent and important as we go through all of it, but especially maybe in chapters like this. So last week we read about how Nephi had been guided by the Spirit and instructed by the Spirit to actually slay Laban. He had been sent with his brothers to go and get the brass plates. Laban was not only refusing, but he was threatening to kill them. And the plates, having those plates, was a part of moving God's work forward. One last thing I'll say, like, they only had one copy of these plates. It isn't like today where you can just go and online and everybody can make a copy. It's typed in there once and it's available to everyone. Or even like taking it to a print press and printing several copies of a book. A lot of history was shared through speaking and sharing stories, and some things got captured but on plates of brass. Like, imagine just writing with a pen, typing on a keyboard, or having to engrave it with a tool onto a piece of metal. It's a big deal. And they were captured there to keep them, because if you've ever played the gossip game or even just had a conversation with someone, just in talking, meaning gets lost, stories get changed. And so having a place where they could actually refer to, the original version, the original story, the original revelations is really important to have. So these meant a lot and they mattered a lot. And anyway, and it's still a difficult topic. Like, Nephi didn't want to. He was instructed by the Spirit to slay Laban. He put on Laban's clothes and took his sword, and he went and used the voice of Laban to go to the treasury and to ask for the plates. And so I think I might have read this verse last time, but I'm going to start with verse 20. So he's talking about, after I had done this, meaning slaying Laban, putting on his clothes, girding himself with his armor. After I had done this, I went forth unto the treasury of Laban. And as I went forth towards the treasury of Laban, behold, I saw the servant of Laban, who had the keys of the treasury. And I commanded him in the voice of Laban that he should go with me into the treasury. And he supposed me to be his master Laban, for he beheld the garments and also the sword girded about my loins. But he also spoke with him. Like, this servant's name is Zoram. We'll learn later, but the servant of Laban was with him all the time, and he knew him well. And so, to me, this is a miracle. You have somebody putting on somebody's clothes. It doesn't make them look like the person. I try to dress up as people. One time I remember in particular, I was going to a costume party, and my husband and I, and we don't ever do this, or very often, but I dressed up as Cher and he dressed up as Sunny. And I put on a wig and an outfit. I did not look like Cher, not one little tiny bit. Dave kind of looked like Sunny, but anyway, it's a whole other. But you totally could tell it was me, right? And so it takes more than just putting on somebody's clothes and their armor, and even trying to use their voice. Like not very many people, there are some, can sound like another person exactly. So anyways, he speaks to him. He's dressed like him. I think it was nighttime, so that probably helped. But he totally believed that he was him. So to me, that's a miracle. The Lord like made this happen. He supposed me to be his master Laban, for he beheld the garments and also the sword girded about my loins. And he spake unto me concerning the elders of the Jews, he knowing that his master Laban had been out by night among them. So they're having small talk. He's asking questions about the people he was with. And I spake unto him as if it had been Laban. So how would Nephi know the words that would have come out of Laban's mouth? How would Nephi know the details that Zoram was asking him about? And just miracles. And I also spake unto him that I should carry the engravings which were upon the plates of brass to my elder brethren who were without the walls, which would have been another thing like, what? Why? What? But he didn't question it. And maybe he did. It doesn't, we don't get all of the pieces of the story in the books, but it just, to me, it's like the more I think about stuff like that and translate it through my own experience of what would it have been like if I were there, it just is like, whoa, this is like a miraculous moment. And he, supposing that I spake of the brethren of the church, and that I was truly Laban whom I had slain, wherefore he did follow me. And he spake unto me many times concerning the elders of the Jews, as I went forth unto my brethren who were without the walls. And it came to pass that when Laman saw me, he was exceedingly frightened. Okay, so Laman, remember, is Nephi's brother. Laban is the, I don't know if he was the king, but he was the keeper of the plates. He's the one that Nephi slayed, and Laman is the brother. And just one other point, like, again, even this Book of Mormon is being engraven upon metal plates. And so you would want to be really particular with what you put on the plates. Why was it important that he mentioned more than once that Zoram kept talking to him about the elders of the church? And again, it makes me wonder if it's just a way to help us understand the miraculousness of the moment. Like he's just talking about me as if I was really Laban. Just there's a reason why he mentioned that, and he only had so much space and it took so much time. There's a reason why he chose to mention that. So could that be one of them? I don't know. It'd be cool if you're listening, like what would your thoughts be? Why do you think he chose to put that that Zoram spoke to Nephi about the brethren, the elders, the people that he'd been with? Like he mentions it more than once. Okay, so they go without the walls, and then it came to pass that when Laman, his brother, saw me, he was exceedingly frightened, and also Lemuel and Sam, and they fled from before my presence, for they supposed it was Laban, and that he had slain me, and had sought to take away their lives also. And it came to pass that I called after them, and they did hear me, wherefore they did cease to flee from my presence. I also wonder if maybe there might be somewhere written in here, because in my brain, I've watched a cartoon about this lots of times throughout my, I think, teenage and early parenthood years, where Laban, they animated him to be like short and kind of fat, and Nephi was tall and muscular, and so it's like he doesn't look like him at all. But I don't know if that's written anywhere, and I'm just realizing it now because the picture I see in my brain is the animated cartoon, which is another way we translate things, right? So we translate things incorrectly based on our own experience a lot of the time. So asking ourselves these questions is important to get a true translation of anything. And so now I'm wondering, maybe Laban and Nephi were of similar stature, similar like build. I think Laban was older than Nephi, but you know, with the nighttime and his armor and everything, that probably mattered less. But maybe there was that too, because even his own brothers thought it was Laban for a minute. So anyway, it just was a funny thought to me to be like, oh, the picture in my mind is from the cartoon, just somebody else's own personal interpretation of it. So okay, so, and it came to pass that when the servant of Laban, oh wait, I skipped a verse, sorry. So they supposed it was Laban and that he had slain me and had sought to take away their lives also. And it came to pass that I called after them, and they did hear me, wherefore they did cease to flee from my presence. So now he's using his own voice. And it came to pass that when the servant of Laban beheld my brethren, he began to tremble. So now he's like, oh, that's not Laban's voice. Right? Like, wait, what's happening here? And then he's like, oh, those are his brothers. Like, what's happening? Am I going to be attacked? Was this an ambush? Whatever. And Zoram was about to flee from before me and return to the city of Jerusalem. And now I, Nephi, being a man large in stature, and also having received much strength of the Lord, therefore I did seize upon the servant of Laban and held him that he should not flee. So this is an intense moment. Imagine being Zoram. That would be so scary. And it came to pass that I spake with him, that if he would hearken unto my words, as the Lord liveth, and as I live, even so, that if he would hearken unto our words, we would spare his life. Now, even that to me is a miracle, because if you think about how our brains work when we're afraid, it's an intense moment, right? Zoram thinks it's Laban. He's doing this interesting thing, but he's still doing it, and he thinks it's Laban. He's like pretty cash, and then all of a sudden they go outside the walls. They see Nephi's brothers. The brothers start to run. Nephi calls out. It's like, hey, just a second, it's me. And then Zoram's like, wait, who are these people? Who are you? Like, I've just trusted you. I've just given you this treasure that's been under my responsibility to take care of all this time. Like, that's an intense moment. And when our brains experience intense moments, we go into fight and flight. We leave our what's called the window of tolerance. And it shuts down our ability to think, to reason, to really even listen. Like, we're trying to think about, okay, I'm in danger. I've either got to run, or I've got to fight, or I got to play dead so that I don't die, right? And that's where our brains go. And now Nephi has him. He grabbed him and he's holding him down, which would intensify that moment for most of us, right? But then as Nephi starts to speak, he's speaking in ways that Zoram's hearing him. And so I'm sure it had something to do with Nephi probably calmed his voice down, and Nephi probably had to have been heightened a little bit too. Maybe not. Maybe God was helping him not be. But he starts speaking to him in, I mean, mind-blowing ways. Number one, does it sound like blackmail? But it's not. And so again, the spirit to me is there, it's present, and the spirit is communicating to Zoram as well as through Nephi. Like, look, this is what the Lord wants, probably speaking peace unto his soul, which is part of what we understand the spirit to be and how the spirit works. That's the voice of the Lord, speaks peace into our soul. In the middle of things that are super scary, and there's a lot of that goes on, we can hear the peace of the Spirit and of, God and the Savior speaking to us if we will hearken, if we will listen, if we will remember, again, that filter that God loves his children. And I imagine Nephi, well, he did. He prayed before he went. He was walking with the Spirit the whole time. He's able to respond to Zoram in a way that is keeping him there, keeping him from running, keeping him from alerting, the armies of 50 to run after them. And he's speaking now to Zoram. So picture all of that. And then how would it be if, we were all just relying on our human brains? If we were in that scene, there would be a huge fight. He wouldn't be hearing, he'd be fighting, trying to get away, running, yelling, help. Instead, Nephi's speaking. he says, "If he would hearken unto my words, as the Lord liveth, and as I live, even so that if he would hearken unto our words, we would spare his life. And I spake unto him even with an oath that he need not fear, that he should be a free man like unto us, if he would go down into the wilderness with us." Now, did Zoram know that he wasn't free? Did he feel like he was living in captivity and just doing what he was told because he had to? I mean, I don't know. Maybe he recognized he wasn't a free man. But here, um, the way that I've always pictured it, and I don't even know why I pictured it that way, to be honest, but I've always pictured it that Zoram was happy with his job and he already felt like he was a free man. Like in Jerusalem, it wasn't a city of captivity. I don't think so. It was going to be soon, but they didn't know that yet. That's part of why they left. People were laughing, like, "What are you talking about? We're a great city of Jerusalem. We're not captive. So what are you preaching to us?" Which is why Lehi and his family left in the first place, because they're like, "You're stupid. We're going to try and kill you because stop saying this nonsense," right? Instead, Nephi uses those words. He's like, "Look, you don't need to be afraid. If you'll just listen and trust me, you don't need to fear. You can come with us and be a free man like we are and go into the wilderness with us. Be a part of us. Become part of our family. Become part of our little group of people that have escaping this destruction and this bondage that's coming, and be free with us." Right? So had Zoram listened to the words before? Had he already been thinking about it? Had he been wondering about it? Or was this like a miraculous moment, and maybe both, where the Spirit of the Lord spoke through Nephi into the heart of Zoram, and it became a moment of like, okay, let's go, right? It's just, to me, it's amazing. So, "And I also spake with him, saying, Surely the Lord hath commanded us to do this thing." I feel like that was jumbled. Let me say it again. Sometimes my words I speak too fast or too lazy, maybe. "Surely the Lord hath commanded us to do this thing, and shall we not be diligent in keeping the commandments of the Lord?" Like he's speaking as if Zoram was a part of it the whole time. Like, surely the Lord commanded us. Like Zoram had never heard about it before until right now. But he's trusting enough in the Lord to speak the truth to Zoram. He's just speaking it matter of fact. And so it's just amazing to me. How many times could we use this in our lives? How many times could I use this in my life? I get so afraid to say things to people because of how they might respond. And then I feel like I have to explain all the things before I speak, because they're not going to get what I'm saying. They're going to think I'm dumb. They're going to think I'm crazy. They're going to think I'm trying to manipulate, whatever comes to my mind. What if I spoke with this much faith in what I'm saying? And obviously the faith comes from listening and focusing on the Lord, and listening for what he wants me to say, rather than just coming from some random place in my own messy human life, right? There's a lot that goes into it. Anyway, "Therefore, if thou wilt go down into the wilderness to my father, thou shalt have place with us, be a part of our family. And it came to pass that Zoram did take courage at the words which I spake. Now Zoram was the name of the servant, and he promised that he would go down into the wilderness unto our father." So again, in this really scary situation that could have been super scary, super crazy, like what the heck is happening, he took courage. He's like, "All right, let's go. Yea, and he also made an oath unto us that he would tarry with us from that time forth." And the other thing that amazes me about these words and just scriptures in general, and you'll see it tons of times through the Book of Mormon, that people were so true to their word that they can make oaths with each other and trust those oaths. Even enemies, even people that don't know each other. Like Nephi made an oath to Zoram. "You don't need to fear. You'll be free like us. You can join our family." And Zoram makes an oath. "Okay, I'll come with you, and I'm not going to run away. I'm not going to sneak away and tell people where you are and get you killed." And they both believed it, and they trusted in that. What would that be like in our life today, if we could say what we mean and believe what is said? That's a phrase I use a lot with my clients as I'm working with them, especially couples. Like, trust each other, speak the truth, and trust that what they're saying is the truth. It might not be perfect, but at least it's the truth. It's amazing to me. So, he made an oath unto us that he would tarry with us from that time forth. Now we were desirous that he should tarry with us for this cause, that the Jews might not know concerning our flight into the wilderness, lest they should pursue us and destroy us. And it came to pass that when Zoram had made an oath unto us, our fears did cease concerning him. And it came to pass that we took the plates of brass and the servant of Laban, and departed into the wilderness, and journeyed unto the tent of our father. And that's it. I mean, easy breezy, right? Not so easy. But honestly, I just feel like life could be so much easier if we could take just that part of it. Like, if we could trust each other's word, life would be, the world would be a different place. Anyway, that is chapter 4, and did it under 30 minutes this time, so yay me. I'm pretty sure I'll be back next Sunday, even in the middle of chaos. If I can do it in the chaos here, I can do it in the chaos there, right? So, but yeah, it'll be fun. I'll have a new background, a new home. It's definitely not the wilderness, but I am taking some courage reading about Nephi and his family, leaving what they knew and going somewhere different, even though they maybe didn't want to. And similar a little bit to my situation, and it's not that I am being forced out because of any danger. It's just I'm not sure how I feel about leaving. It's kind of sad to me. But at the same time, there's life on the other side. And yeah, so that's one little message that I'm personally taking from what we just read. So, all right, have a great week. I will see you again with chapter 5. All right, bye.